My name's Dana Ferguson. I'm a speech-language pathologist. I've been working for, I can't believe I'm going to say this, but 30 years this summer. And I currently work for Segmentation Central Regional Center for Education. When I went to school back in the late 80s, we actually didn't learn about phonological awareness. And it wasn't until I graduated and was working in the school system that I took it upon myself to learn about it. And not only did I find it very interesting and can really appreciate the importance of it, it's something I love working with the students on. So I guess you could say I take a particular interest in the subject, and I feel it's something really important that needs to be shared, and especially with teachers, because from what I gather from some friends who have recently completed their teacher training programs, there's still not a lot of specific instruction being carried out for teachers. So it gets back to us having to do these kind of things to educate ourselves and learn all about it. So if at any time you have a question, I believe that you can put it in the chat feature and our moderator will let me know that there is a question. When I am sharing my PowerPoint here, I can't see the screen. So Bess, you may have to interrupt me verbally, which is absolutely fine. My other bit of disclaimer that I just want to mention is that this is a topic that I could probably talk on for probably 3 to 4 hours and still not feel like I've covered everything. And the presentations I've done in this have been about 90 minutes to 2 hours. And then I was told 60 minutes for this one. And then there was even some hints that I should be doing 40 minutes. And I was basically having a headache about that because I was like, there's no way I can condense this into 40 minutes. So I have removed a lot of slides and a lot of material in order to attempt to achieve that objective. So please keep in mind that this is going to be a very brief overview of phonological awareness and how it can be integrated into your practices as a classroom teacher or a learning center teacher or a resource teacher, or if there's any other professionals out there, SLPs or psychologists. And that if you want to learn more about it, then I've included a lot of links at the end of the PowerPoint. So without further ado, we'll get started. This again is what we're going to cover is what is phonological awareness? Why is it important? How do we assess it? And how do we teach it? So phonological awareness is basically a term, it's an umbrella term to describe the overall awareness that a child develops about how words can be broken down into syllables and into sounds. And so it's their understanding of how those sounds in our language blend together to form syllables, syllables into words, words into phrases, and phrases into sentences. And what I really want to stress is that phonological awareness is based on auditory skills. We can use visual skills to help us teach it, but the primary modality for teaching it and assessing it is through the ears or auditorily. So you probably hear a lot of terms such as phonemic awareness and phonics along with phonological awareness. And sometimes these terms are used interchangeably, probably not accurately. So we're just going to take a moment to talk about what these are. So first of all, phonics. Phonics is the knowledge that a child has about letters and the sounds that they make. And students need to learn to use phonics in order to read. So that really is something that a lot of teachers will teach in terms of showing a child a sound and saying, showing them a letter and saying, what sound does that make? There are a lot of different programs out there for teaching phonics. Some that you may have heard of in early elementary grades would be Jolly Phonics or Lively Letters. And both of these programs incorporate a lot of visuals and movement to learn letter sounds, and they have really positive results. Jolly Phonics introduces letter sounds in the order of frequency that they occur, and they teach 42 letter combinations. Lively Letters actually teaches 47 letters and letter combinations, and they as well use colorful pictures, shows the students what to do with their mouths when making the letter sounds. So those two pictures there on your screen show the picture for the L sound, which is called the singing tongue up sound. And the next one is for the letter P, which shows it's called the quiet lip puffing sound. And you can even see on that letter P that there's a set of lips embedded in the picture down the side. And that teaches the child that when they see that letter, that they use their lips to make a quiet puffing sound. So I want to point out as well that teaching the alphabet and only teaching the alphabet only provides a very partial instruction of phonics. And that's because there's only 26 letters in the alphabet. And as I just mentioned, these programs teach 42 to 47 different letters and combinations. So let's compare phonological awareness and phonics. So as I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, phonological awareness is auditory based, whereas phonics is visual based. Phonological awareness is based in speech and speech output of a certain language, whereas phonics is very much centered on print. With phonological awareness, we're really attempting to establish the relationships between sounds to letters or written letters, whereas phonics is from the spelling system to the sound system. With phonological awareness, we teach children that sounds actually do have letters, but with phonics, we teach that letters have sounds. For phonological awareness to develop, a child needs to really be able to discriminate between sounds. But for phonics to develop, a child must be able to discriminate between letters and to help them identify words. Phonological awareness relies on the natural units of speech in a particular language. So that could vary depending on what language the child's being instructed in. And in English, that is between 42 and 47 sounds, again, depending on the phonics program. Whereas phonics is really an artificial code because it's based on letters. So again, different languages will have different letters. And there's 26 letters in our language. So these skills here are the phonological awareness skills that fall under that umbrella. So we can have segmenting sentences, segmenting syllables, and blending them together. It also includes rhyme awareness, rhyme production, being able to identify beginning and ending sounds in words, blending sounds to form a word, segmenting sounds into words, and then manipulating sounds in clusters. So adding sounds and taking away sounds and changing the sounds in words. Phonemic awareness is actually one component of phonological awareness. And it's the awareness that really focuses on the fact that words are made up of sounds and that these sounds have distinct features. So it refers to the last four skills right here on our slide of blending and segmenting and changing sounds. And the most effective phonemic awareness intervention includes letter sound instruction and use of letters in activity. So really combining phonemic awareness with phonics. We know that children can have skills, really good skills in phonics and still be weak in phonological awareness. And actually, it can be the other way around as well. So a child can know their letter sounds, but can't blend the sounds together to form a word. Or a child can blend sounds together, but they maybe mix up the vowels when they're reading a word. So for example, they may read pit as pet. So that again is back related to phonics. So phonemic awareness over the years has been an area that has received a lot of attention in the literature. And it's probably been one of the most important discoveries about reading difficulties in the last 20 years. So we know that weaknesses in this area can be measured by a variety of tasks and sometimes quite simply. And the ones that are the most important are those that identify the child's ability to think about, identify, and manipulate sounds in words. So this is a diagram you may have seen. It's from the National Reading Panel, and it suggests that there are 5 pillars of reading instruction. So you can see that phonemic awareness, it's not the number one, but it is one of 5 pillars, including phonics, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension. So it's very clear that high quality instruction to enhance phonemic awareness should be part of reading instruction for every child. And we know that this will actually accelerate the growth in reading of all children. And as well, we know that it appears to be vital for at least 20% of children to acquire reading. It's still only one part of an effective reading curriculum. So it needs to be combined with these other things, as well as concepts of print, word identification, and even factors like emotion and motivation. Good books and literature and writing will come into play. So why are phonological awareness skills important? Hopefully by now I've given you a little bit of sense of why they are, but this fact alone hopefully will solidify the importance in one sentence. A student's level of phonological awareness at the end of kindergarten, or primary in our world, is one of the strongest predictors of future reading success in grade 1 and beyond. And again, the phonological awareness skills of segmenting, so breaking up words into sounds and syllables, and blending are the most highly correlated with beginning reading acquisition. So this shows us basically the building blocks of phonological awareness. And it starts as early as the preschool years with just listening. And then children learn to recognize and produce rhyme and alliteration. They're able to break sentences down into words. They then develop an awareness of syllables, onset and rhyme, and then there's that phonemic awareness at the top. So in terms of simplest to the most complex, being able to isolate sounds in words would be one of the simplest tasks. And then we go to blending, segmenting, adding, and deleting. In terms of how phonological skills develop, this again is something I could probably spend 10 or 15 minutes talking about, but I'm going to go through these slides fairly quickly because you will have the handouts. They will be posted if you want reference. This just shows some general trends in development. And as I mentioned a minute ago, in fact, just listening skills related to phonological awareness can develop as early as 3 years old in some kids. But around 4, we start to see some kids actually enjoying rhyme and recognizing rhyme and alliteration. And then at 5 and beyond, they start to recognize rhyme with more accuracy and also be able to see changes in words by sounds. They can start to clap or count syllables, and they can distinguish and remember different sounds in words. Then we start to see being able to blend onset and rhyme, produce rhyme, and match initial sounds. And then around their 6th birthday, most kids are able to delete parts of compound words. They can delete a syllable from a word. They can blend 2 and 3 sounds. And they can start to segment or break up words that have really simple syllables and 2 or 3 sounds. Through that next year, they start to be able to improve their segmentation of words. And then by about 7, we start to see their ability to delete sounds. At 8, to be able to delete sound, including blends. And at the initial sound position, and at the end of the word around 9. Now keep in mind with any charts like this that we will see variability, and you can look this up in the internet and you might find a different chart that suggests different age ranges. And that's going to be everything that you are going to look up in terms of child development. But these are just broad benchmarks to keep in mind. So just really quick, you've probably heard of response to intervention model, or RTI. And tier 1 is what you do for all students. So it's large classroom instruction. Tier 2 is small group instruction that can be done by early literacy teachers, resource teachers, SLPs. And Tier 3 basically means a student needs further assessment and maybe some more one-on-one work. So in early elementary, we know that children have varying phonological awareness skills. Some students will develop these skills quite easily just within the context of a stimulating classroom environment. And that again is called Tier 1. I will point out as well, to keep in line with consistent terminology, that this would also be something that teachers would do in line with UDL, or Universal Design for Learning. So still just providing all children with the same instruction related to a skill. Some students are going to need more instruction that really explicitly teaches phonological awareness, and that's going to be those Tier 2 group of students. And then we know that about 8 to 10% will exhibit significant delays that are going to require more assessment and more intervention, which is Tier 3. So phonological awareness fits quite nicely into this model because teachers can teach in whole classes, we can provide support in small groups, and then within the school setting, we can provide additional assessment and instruction, or at least referral for that in a perfect world for those students who are struggling. So how do we know if a child has good phonological awareness skills? Well, we often look for things that the child is struggling with. So a child with weak phonological awareness skills will look maybe like a child who has some speech difficulties, so they might delete syllables, they may have lots of sound errors. That's not to say that all children who have a speech delay have phonological awareness delays, but often that can be a yellow flag for us to really examine their phonological awareness skills. They may have problems processing language, and they often will have a family history of reading difficulty. Sometimes I'll work with families who will tell me that mom or dad had a history of that. But as I mentioned, phonological awareness is much newer or more recent area of research and of assessment. So there's probably lots of parents out there who had difficulty reading, who had difficulty as well with phonological awareness, which was never diagnosed. In the classroom, a child who doesn't discriminate or can't produce rhymes, again, could be an indicator. A child who has difficulty breaking up words into sounds or syllables. A child who can't detect whether two sounds are the same or different. They may have difficulty clapping in rhythm. They might have difficulty blending sounds. They may have difficulty with sound-letter correspondence. And they might have difficulty making the link from sounds to the written word. So if you as a teacher want to see what your students' knowledge of phonological awareness is, you can do this within daily literacy activities on an informal basis in your classroom, or there's actual specific assessment activities that you can carry out. A fairly easy test that takes about 10 minutes to administer and gives some good developmental information is called the PAST. I've given you the link there. And it's used in some other school boards. It can be administered by the classroom teacher, the resource teacher, the early literacy teacher. And again, I'm not going to go into detail on this. It does have some really good subtests for talking about concepts of spoken word, rhyme, syllable blending, syllable segmentation. Of course, as a classroom teacher, you can always develop a portfolio assessment that would look at phonological awareness skills. And then there's some other criterion-based assessments that are out there, but again, the PAST being one of those. If a child requires further formal assessment, then there's some tests that are quite widely used in our province, and these can be administered by an SLP or psychologist. Oftentimes, we have resource teachers that have that level B criterion in terms of test administration, and they can administer tests such as the PAT. The test of phonological awareness is another commonly used one. The CTOP is one that you may have seen in psychology reports, but we can also administer that. And then there's a screener on a test called the SELF-P2 that SLPs will sometimes administer in terms of getting a baseline for children in primary. And this is not an exhaustive list by any means. There's lots of other tests out there. These are just some common ones. So in terms of phonological awareness, the next part of the presentation is about how can I teach it, or am I already teaching it? And a question that comes up often is it in the curriculum? Now, again, this is a subject that I could talk on probably for 15 minutes, but I'm going to summarize to say that there have been some changes recently in our curriculum. And this is an example of the primary English language arts document, and that can be found on the Department of Ed website. And on page 4, I'm not going to flip over to that again because of the time it takes, but they actually do say that working on the phonological awareness skills of rhyme and identifying sounds, segmenting and blending is an important part of word study under the English language curriculum outcomes. I wish there was more explicit curriculum objectives, but this is a start, and I'm optimistic that we will see more of this in the years to come. So how can you work on phonological awareness? Well, there's so many things that you can do in the classroom. I'm sure a lot of teachers are doing these things and don't even realize that they're actually helping a child's phonological awareness skills develop. So things like reading books, singing songs, finding objects in a room that rhyme, clapping out syllables in each of the students' names. Those are all great activities that work on phonological awareness. Some people may want to have more specific ideas for activities, even maybe to have some materials. And there's, again, lots of resources out there. There's one called the Sound Start. There's the Haggerty curriculum. And there's other ones, Road to the Code, and lots of different workbooks. If you're looking for suggestions outside of being able, in this wonderful time of technology, to Google it, I'd also suggest that you make friends with your speech-language pathologist at your school, and hopefully they can help you determine what kind of activities or materials would be useful for your teaching style. There's also some software programs that are really great, and I only mention those because some teachers that I work with, what we've done is that we've had a student during their ELA time in the classroom working on some of those programs independently for 10 minutes while the other kids might be involved in another activity. The best way to develop phonological awareness skills is to begin with some really general types of listening skills and then move to bigger pieces of language. Gradually move back to smaller and smaller sounds, and then the children will really learn to listen and use these individual sounds. So teaching the right pieces in the right order is very crucial. So sometimes people like to have a curriculum to follow, like a Sound Start or the Haggerty. So what I'm going to do now, just really quickly, is to go through the different areas of phonological awareness and just talk a little bit about them. For some of them, I'm going to show you some videos and give you some ideas of what you can do. So rhyme awareness, and these again aren't in necessarily order of development. I'm putting them in the order of, I'm kind of lumping them together in terms of rhyme and segmenting and blending. So rhyme awareness basically means being able to say if two words rhyme or not. Rhyming words, as we know as adults, sound the same at the end. So for children to be able to discriminate between rhyming words, they do have to understand the concepts of same and different. And in some cases, they have to understand beginning and end. I've done tasks of rhyme discrimination with lots of kids who may not be able to tell you if the words sound the same at the end, but they can tell you that they rhyme. So if you're teaching that skill, you need to introduce those concepts. Some students just don't understand what rhyme is, and again, need to be taught. They need to know which part of the word is important for rhyming. And that's because if they don't, and they're just listening for similarities, some students will say yes to this question. Do coat and cup rhyme? They're going to answer yes, because they are hearing some similarities. But again, with rhyming, it's at the end of the word. So exposure to rhyme can be accomplished very easily through lots of classroom-based activities. And remember that some students may not have had any exposure to rhyme prior to coming to school. So reading of books is a great start. You can point out the words that are rhyming, stop and see if children heard any words that rhyme. You can sing songs, you can work on word families, and that would be an example of pulling the visual into rhyme. So pointing out that words in certain word families all have the same endings. We can hear it and we can see it if you print them. Using little sayings like, see you later, alligator, bye-bye, butterfly. And then the second visual there is just, again, an example of a word family activity that you can use to really reinforce that they all sound the same at the end. This would be an example of something that may be used in a tier 2 or a tier 3 activity. Just an example of a worksheet where a student would, or students would say each of the 2 words, and if they rhyme, then they draw a circle around the picture. So pan, fan, yep, they rhyme. Ice, dice, yep, they rhyme, let's circle them. King, bed, no, they don't rhyme, we're not going to circle them. So just an example of a type of worksheet activity in addition to a more classroom-based something. Another example, this activity could be used in a center. So there's little pies and you cut the little circles up and the kids have to put them back together in the correct pie with all the same rhyming words together. After kids develop the ability to discriminate between rhyme, usually they can start to produce rhymes. We'd like all students by the end of kindergarten to be able to recognize and generate rhyme. And again, this is something that we can do easily through songs, through different games, generating poems, making a rhyme. You can create lists of words that rhyme. There's even lots of opportunities for music teachers to work on this skill in singing because a lot of songs rhyme. These are examples of little books that can be used with students where they have to put in the rhyming word or other little written activities. And again, TPT has tons of activities like this and even just free ones on the internet as well. So let's move on to segmenting. So segmenting, if you recall, has 3 other skills built into it. That would be dividing sentences into words, dividing words into syllables, and then words into individual sounds. And segmentation is really important for building literacy skills because it teaches a child that language can be broken up and put back together again. So in terms of teaching segmentation of sentences, we have to start by teaching the child what a sentence is. So as I mentioned, I work with a lot of students in even whole class instruction, and a lot of kids really benefit from this sentence segmentation knowledge, that teaching them that a sentence is a lot of words that we put together. It's actually a really good scaffold for writing. It teaches the children to recognize the difference between words and syllables, and students in writing can see the words printed in front of them. But when we are working on it auditorily, which again is what phonological awareness is, we want kids to be able to really hear the difference. So again, understanding that concept of a word develops from exposure to print, and as they learn to track print, their word segmentation will also improve. And you're going to see writing better by putting spaces between words and punctuation at the end. You can mark words and sentences through clapping. You can hold up your fingers. You can tap. You can use visual markers if you want. But again, I'm going to keep reinforcing this, that phonological awareness has a lot to do with auditory. So if I'm working with students on this, I prefer the clapping method. So we'll say a sentence and then we'll clap out each word in the sentence. So if I said my house is big, and then I want it to clap out each word, I would say my house is big and clap them out. So now we'll move on to segmenting of syllables. What we want to do with this is to get the students to really be listening for the parts or the syllables in a word. This, for example, the word computer has 3 parts. Now, I mentioned before that I like to clap out sentences. My mode for syllables of preference is to chop up my arm. And I start at my wrist, then I go to my elbow for the 2nd syllable, my shoulder for the 3rd, top of my head for the 4th, and back over to my other shoulder for the 5th. And that's quite rare. 80 to 90% of our words in English are made up of 2 and 3 word syllables. So it's very rare you're going to get a longer one. But a child being able to do this, when they learn that strategy, when they get up to their shoulder, they're like, oh, that's a big word. And when they get up to their head, they know that's a really big word. This will help them later with spelling, because if they can spell a word they don't know and break it up into the syllables, and they're then taught that every syllable has to have a vowel, then it's a really useful strategy for taking a stab at spelling unknown words. When we're doing this, we really want to emphasize the rhythm and the intonation in the word. So this is an example of when I'm going to transition, not so gracefully. So I have to stop sharing that. And then I am going to I'm going to pick a tab up here. Now, this video that I'm going to show you, and again, Vanessa, please interrupt me if there's any sound or video issues, is how a teacher is incorporating listening at the beginning of a whole class lesson and then clapping out syllables.
You all listened very nicely. Okay, well today we're going to be using our clapping skills to count syllables. Have we all heard that word syllables before? No. Okay, well the word syllable is the different parts in a word. Every word can be broken down into syllables, and today we're going to count them. So everything has syllables. They can either have 1, they can have 2, or even 5. Names and words, or 3. Okay, so I want you to watch me as I count the syllables in my name, okay? Repeat after me. Mitchell. Mitchell. Good. Repeat after me. Mitchell. Mitchell. Okay, one more time. Mitchell. Mitchell. Good. Okay. Now I'm going to also count how many syllables with my fingers on my chin. You need to tell me how many syllables are in my name, okay? Mitchell. Mitchell. 2. Thank you, Broderick. Very good. Okay, do you think we can all do this together? Let's find another name. Let's do Mrs. Barrett's name. Okay? Repeat after me. Barrett. Barrett. Good. Barrett. Barrett. How many times did we clap? 2. Good. So how many syllables are in her name? 2. Just like Mitchell, right? Let's do another one. Repeat after me. Book. 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 How many times do we clap? 2. 1. 2. Once. Book. So book has how many syllables? 1. Very good. Okay, let's see if I can.
Okay, that was not super clear on my audio end. I hope you guys got the gist of it. And again, you'll be able to go back and look at any of those at a later time if you like. All right, getting back to my PowerPoint here. So the next level of segmentation, oops, sorry here. Yep, the next level of segmentation would be to divide words into sounds. So that's being able to see what, or hear how many sounds are in words. So for example, how many sounds do you hear in the word add? Now these graphics are not coming up, right? But house would be 3, ow, and then snake, a, k, is 4. So with snake, we have actually 5 letters, but only 4 sounds. And the same with house. There's 5 letters, but only 3 sounds. And this is another video that I'm going to show you, a little activity. This is a one-on-one activity of somebody working with a child, working on that skill just one-on-one. So that's just the gist of being able to, for a child to be able to take a word and divide it up in the sounds. And while I am...
We didn't see a video there. If you were showing us a video, it didn't present
okay.
to us.
All right, thank you for letting me know. But okay, so it was a little boy and as the teacher, and they were moving cars up. I'm not sure why that didn't work. I could see it on my end, but that's going to be the joy of this technology. We're going to do it. So I don't think you missed too much. At least you were able to hear what was happening. And again, it's really focused on the auditory there. Thank you for letting me know that.
We didn't get sound or image. I thought you were still looking for it. I didn't realize you had started playing it. So yeah, we had no sound or image.
Okay, let me try it again then. Let's try that one again. If I thought you heard it but didn't see it. Okay, let's try that again. Okay, can you see that now? Vanessa, are you able to see the screen now?
It's coming up now.
Okay, and now I'm going to play it.
Okay, so we're going to play a game that helps you hear all.
Could you hear that?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, sorry about that. Thank you.
The sounds in the word. So you're going to use the cars to help you sound out the word. So like if we did the word mop, you would go aw. So you might not need all the cars. So you do the word mop, sound it out one sound at a time. Aw. Fantastic. Okay, let's try a different one. You sound out the word tap. Tap. Okay, great. Let's put all the cars back.
Okay, so you did hear and see that one. Good. All right, now I'll go back to my PowerPoint now. Let me know if you don't see that, the PowerPoint. All right, is that back on now?
Not yet.
Oh, it's not? Okay.
Oh, here it comes.
Okay, wow, slow transmission here. Okay, so you can see the PowerPoint and, oh, you know what? We must be having some internet things because now it's not changing on my end. Like my screen's not changing. All right, just one sec. Of course, we're gonna have to have a glitch. Let me try again. Can you see that now?
Yes, I can.
All right, great. Okay, so moving on to the next phase of segmenting is being able to take a sound and isolate it from the rest of the word. Sorry, this is not segmenting. This is moving on to what's called isolation. So being able to identify beginning sounds, middle sounds, and ending sounds. And usually we work at the beginning sounds level first, then we'll go to the ending, and then we'll do medial sounds. And that's just by way of complexity. So beginning sounds, what sounds do you hear in cat, car, and cup? They all have the k sound at the beginning. I want to point out at this point that really, really important if you're a teacher who's teaching phonics to a child for the first time, that you don't add a sound onto our sounds, especially these sounds that we call our stop sounds, or even the sounds that are we call continuant sounds, because it can really affect a child's ability to segment and blend effectively later on. So K or a C sound is not a K, it's just a K. And an S sound is not a SA, it's just S. So just a little point there to point out a lot of kids that I work with, that's what they do, is they add this onto a word. This would be an example of something that you could do again in a small group where the child has to decide which picture has the same beginning sound with the picture on the left side. So bug, ring, bed. Which has the same beginning sound as bug? Well, it would be bed, and you would circle that. And sometimes I will use these for whole class activities, but I just won't show the picture. I use it just for me in terms of materials to generate the words. Now, this actually goes along quite well with activities of alliteration, which is just that repetition of beginning sounds. And it's actually the first step to listening and identifying those beginning sounds. And as I mentioned in the development, a lot of kids will actually start to get this skill even before they come to school. It's important for literacy development because it really teaches kids to listen and identify those individual sounds and words. They do, again, have to understand the concept of beginning and first to be able to talk about it and really understand it. So in terms of identifying beginning sounds in whole class lessons, you can do initial sound sorts of pictures, not words, because then the kids are going to rely on those letters to help them sort. We want them to really listen to what sounds are at the beginning, listening for sounds and stories, and then linking initial letters to their sounds is something that we can use to incorporate the visual. Now, something I want to talk a little bit about briefly, it's been getting a little more attention, I would say, in the last couple of months, are sound walls. I'm sure you've all heard of word walls. Sound walls are similar, except that instead of using the alphabet letters to classify your words and your pictures, you use the sounds. So it gets back to what I was talking about with phonics. If you use a word wall, you're going to have to add more graphemes to match the phonemes, because again, there's anywhere from 44 to 47 phonemes. So if you build a sound wall, you can teach the sounds and then add the graphemes as they're introduced and put the words under each of those corresponding letters or graphemes. And why this is important is because it starts to teach kids right away the difference between words that start with, say, SH and S. On a traditional word wall, a word like shirt would be under the S, but it really should be under the SH, because that SH together is one sound. So if you're interested in doing that, it's not a difficult thing to do. It just involves printing some more letters. And again, there's lots of information. I think I include a link at the end here as well for that. It really helps kids focus on what their mouth is doing at the beginning of words. So some kids who really struggle with the recall of phonemes will benefit from that extra information about what is your mouth doing? Are your lips together? Is your tongue up? And this, again, is emphasized in a lot of the phonics programs. And in the Lindamood program, which is often used for kids who are having difficulty with that as a remediation. You can even use little mouth diagrams. And I use the Lively Letters program with my students in primary, and I do it with 2 teachers, and they love it. And there's a lot of diagrams around this and movement, and we really talk about what we do with our mouth. and how the sounds are made. Now, these are examples of visuals that have been traditionally used as a way to improve sound recall. The problem with these, though, is that there's only 26 of them. So again, we're missing out on a whole almost 40% more of the sounds and letter combinations that are in our English language. Not to say they're not helpful, but there's a lot more that need to be covered if we're going to use visuals to help that. So let's go through some blending activities here now. When we're talking about blending, we're talking about squeezing syllables together to form words and then phonemes together to form words. So for example, what is this word? Crayon. It's the word crayon. This is an example of an activity that you can do with a whole class just by putting syllables out there and having them squeeze them together. This will be my last video that I show you. Oops. All right. And this one's quite long. I'm only going to show you just a couple of minutes, not even a couple of minutes of it. Okay, can you see that, Vanessa?
Not yet.
Oh, okay.
Did you hit present that tab?
Yeah, I did. Let me try it again. Can you see it now?
Now it's coming. Yep.
Okay, my goodness, this must be a little finicky today. All right.
Smoothly put parts of a word together to say them as a whole word. Cat, tull, cattle. In this video, the teacher uses active participation strategies. Students use hand movements to represent syllables and respond chorally. Students are provided repeated practice opportunities.
Now we're going to take the parts of the words and put them together to make one whole word. Ready? Pencil.
Pencil, pencil.
Mother.
Mother, mother.
Laughter.
Laughter, laughter.
I love that I can hear the front rows. Let me hear the back rows. Flower.
Flower, flower.
Whisper it to me. Snowing. Table. Okay, say it in your voice level 2. Father.
Father, father.
Kindness.
Kindness, kindness.
Member.
Member, member.
Dinner.
Dinner, dinner.
Okay. Now, let's see. Go back to my PowerPoint here. We don't have too much left. It always happens in the end. I'm going to whip through some things. Oh. Okay, 1 second. I've got something going on here with. Okay, sorry. Something was playing in the background there. It was too distracting for me to. Okay, can you see my PowerPoint now? No? Vanessa, can you see the PowerPoint?
Sorry, I thought I hit unmute.
Okay.
It's up right now.
Okay, thank you. Oh. Oh, darn. Lost my spot. And you can still see it?
No, it's not on right now.
Gracious. Oh, again, all the things with Zoom, I would be, this would not be happening.
We'd be
All right.
zooming along.
I know, we'd be zooming along. Maybe that's why they call it that. All right, I think what's happening is sometimes the share button is not. Okay, now you can see it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, these are some other ideas for blending syllables together. So just some examples of words. These would be visual enhancements that you can use. Again, not necessary. You can do these as whole groups just by using your voice. Then we get into blending sounds together. And again, this is a really important skill when it comes to literacy. So what word does this make? Egg is egg. It, sit. Stop. That would be the word stop. So those are examples of blending of sounds that can be done in a whole group, just with the kids all in a circle, and you at the beginning. I'm going to skip over these videos. It's just, again, the first one is just an example of an animated video that gives a different way of presenting blending sounds together. And then there's another one that you can view if you are interested in more ideas. This is an example of just a little picture that I would use with small groups, where I would ask the child to find me something in the picture, but I'm not going to say the word in its whole. I'm going to talk like a robot. So I want you to find me the p, e, g. Now they have a closed set, so they know it's got to be something in that picture, and that word would be pig, and then they circle it. These are just some other sound blending ideas that you can use where you're using visuals to help teach that skill. So placing letters on the tray, moving the letters together on a caterpillar where you stretch them or put them back together again. Now at this point, I want to talk really briefly about orthographic mapping. Again, a newer kind of buzzword in literature and really important in terms of helping kids with reading strategies, and it is linked to phonological awareness. So it involves being able to connect those letter sounds and how those connect to spelling and pronunciation. And really it explains how kids learn to read words by sight, how they store those in their memory, and how they actually acquire vocabulary from print. So think of phonic decoding as going from the text to the brain, so the part to the whole. But orthographic mapping is actually from brain to text, so the whole to the part. Why this is important is for words like this. So for bed, bed has 3 phonemes, 3 sounds, and 3 letters. So b, ed. Whereas sheep also only has 3 sounds, sh, e, p, but it has 5 letters, and that's because the sh is represented by 2 letters, and the long E is represented by 2 E sounds. So when you're doing activities like this with kids, when you want to really focus on orthographic mapping, then you'd ask the child to finger spell a word. So for example, sat. So they assign each finger to a sound. So, and it actually, they suggest to do it in their non-dominant hand. So for me, it would be my left hand. So at. Then you write each letter on a whiteboard, or you could pull up different letter tiles, and then you repeat the phoneme with each one. So you finger spell it, at, and then as you drag those up, you do it again, at. Then you read the whole word, sat, and then you say each letter name, S-A-T. And that's an example of, again, putting a word into memory. Now the final stage, which is again more complex, I'm going to go through this really quickly in case there's any other questions, is being able to manipulate sounds and syllables. So changing beginning and ending sounds, taking away sounds. These are again great activities to do for a couple of minutes each morning or during your ELA time, where you're asking children to change a word. So take the word got and take away the g and put a what do you have? This is an example on the other side of a visual where a child can use different sounds to create new words. Take away syllables. So say the word snowman. Take away snow, what's left? Man. Take away sounds. So say the word sneeze. Take away the s, what's left? We have the word knees left. Now again, these can all be done auditorily, orally. You do not need any materials or pictures. You just need your list of words for those. An activity I would do with small groups. It's where you have popcorn and you have the word road and you depict that with r, o, d. They put 3 pieces of popcorn. Then you tell them to take away the r, the the word left is owed, and they get to eat that piece of popcorn. Adding phonemes, similar things. So you add on sounds to words. What word do you have? If you add b to red, you would have the word bread. Again, very easy to do in large groups. And then manipulating sounds is changing pot to top, where you change the sounds at the beginning and the end with each other. Phoneme manipulation, making different words out of 4 letters. So just to summarize and finish up here, what should I be doing as a teacher? I would recommend that you spend 5 to 10 minutes every day systematically and explicitly teaching phonological awareness. And you can embed it into lots of other activities into your day. For example, how you pick names for students you can use with rhyming, or what's the beginning sound, choosing students for lining up or doing other tasks. And if you're concerned that a child's not making progress or they're not progressing in their reading, then you want to talk to your SLP or consider referral to your team, or your site-based, as we call it in our RCE. So just to summarize, on the basis of very substantial and consistent research findings, it's clear that high-quality instruction to enhance phonological awareness should be a part of reading instruction for every child. And it's going to accelerate the reading growth of all children. And again, it's really going to help those 20% who absolutely need it in order to read effectively. Competence in this early language literacy provides that vital foundation for later reading success. And phonological awareness is a critical part of that process. Problems with phonological awareness are the most common cause of reading and spelling difficulties. And yet it's often inadequately addressed in these young readers who are struggling. This is an example of the Heggerty curriculum that I was telling you about. I gave you the link there. There's the sound start. And then there's lots of websites and other references at the end of the handout. Some videos that you can watch. And that is that.